We continue our coverage of the Uvalde, Texas, the latest unspeakable act of gun violence in this country. An 18-year-old male walked into Robb Elementary School yesterday. He had an AR-15 rifle. As you heard, he went classroom to classroom, opening fire on everyone in his way. At least 19 children, little children, and 2 teachers were killed. They were just 2 days away from summer vacation. I can't stop thinking about that. The massacre reminds us of this horrific shooting that killed 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. That was nearly 10 years ago now, and it was a crime at the time that shook us all to the core. Scott Pelley, anchor of the CBS Evening News, said this on the day of that shooting.
We have been through this too many times. Those are the words of President Obama and the thoughts of all of us after another mass shooting in America. It is a crime more horrific than many could have imagined, in a place that no one would have expected, here in the idyllic New England community of Newtown, Connecticut. Today, a gunman opened fire on school children in a kindergarten classroom.
Earlier today, a number of our citizens, beautiful children, had their life taken away from them.
6-7 Sandy Hook School. Caller's indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
I saw some of the bullets going past the hall that I was right next to.
I just heard the principal was shot and killed. I heard some kids were shot. Mrs. Teacher, Mrs. Hammonds was shot.
Who would have ever thought in elementary school were the children? And
as a country, we have been through this too many times. I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do.
So all these parents were waiting for their children to come out. They thought that they were, still alive. There's 20 parents that were just told that their children are dead. It was awful.
It was 10 years ago. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy was a congressman representing the families of Sandy Hook Elementary School. Since then, the Democrat has worked in Congress to try and pass tougher gun laws, and Senator Murphy joins us now. Senator, I look at those images, and I'll never forget that day. I know you won't either, because I know you were there. But yesterday, I was watching you on television. I felt your pain. I felt your passion. It literally jumped out of the TV screen to me, Chris, when you started begging your colleagues. So I'm wondering, what has been the reaction? Have you heard from them? Have they said, we hear you, we believe you, now's the time to do something? What are they saying to you today?
I mean, listen, I just worry that we are becoming numb to this, that we are accepting this as the new normal. We just need to remind ourselves that this is the only place in the world that this happens. There's not a single country in the world in which kids fear for their lives when they walk into school in the morning. It's our choice. We can do something about this. And so, yes, I've been on the phone texting with my colleagues all yesterday, this morning, trying to find some common ground. Listen, no secret that I think these assault weapons designed to kill human beings as quickly as possible have no place in civilized society, but I'm willing to compromise. And so I've made clear to my Republican colleagues, I'm open for business. If you have a compromise, if you have something that you think can make our country a little bit safer, can make our kids and our families a little bit safer, let's get it done. And so my hope is over the next 24, 48 hours that there'll be 10 or 15 Republicans of good conscience that will watch what these parents are going through in Texas and come to the table and try to find some way to make sure that this doesn't happen at least as often as it does now. As a parent who is sending his 2 school-age kids off to school this morning again, knowing that those kids are talking to each other today about whether their school is next, we need to do something.
Imagine the conversations that parents are having with their children this morning. We were told that you were talking to Senator Manchin this morning. Can you share where he stands on this issue?
Well, Senator Manchin was, one of the leaders after Sandy Hook in trying to find bipartisan compromise on expanding background checks. And so Senator Manchin and I were just on the phone. We're going to be reaching out to Republicans today to see if we can find some of that common ground, whether it's on red flag laws, trying to take guns away from folks who show significant signs of impending danger, or whether it's a smaller expansion of the background check system. We're going to reach out to Republicans, try to find something that we can do together this year, right now.
Senator, you've talked about common sense gun legislation. What does that actually look like to you?
You know, what's wild is that this issue is only controversial inside Washington, D.C. Outside Washington, D.C., there's more consensus on common sense gun legislation than on almost any other topic. 90% of Americans think that every gun purchase should come with a background check. The majority of Republicans in this country don't think that assault weapons should be legal. So when I say common sense gun legislation, I mean changes in our gun laws that are supported by a cross-section of gun owners and non-gun owners, Republicans and Democrats in this country. This is an issue that outside of this place actually has tons of consensus. And, you know, that's the gap that we're trying to close here.
Senator, no place is sacred, no person is safe. Even your colleagues in Congress have been targeted on a baseball field, no less, practicing for a game. So at what point are the people who are tasked with giving legislation for a bill that, as you say, is bipartisan, going to act? Is it going to take an act by the president, an executive order of some kind?
I think there's only so much that the president can do on his own. You know, a lot of my Republican colleagues still labor under this mythology that more guns make us safer. Well, you heard the reporting just minutes ago from Texas. There were armed police officers outside that school when the gunman arrived, and they could not stop him, in part because he had weapons that were just as, if not more powerful than the police had. Our police are outgunned today by these shooters. And so we've got to disabuse members of Congress of this idea that the way to protect kids is to put more weapons in our schools. Obviously, that didn't work here. What we have to do is make sure that the killers don't have weapons that are more powerful than law enforcement.
Senator, I just think we really need a hero here in the Senate. We need a hero in this country. You know, it's Democrats blame Republicans, Republicans blame Democrats. What if the focus was somehow just focused on the children?
Right.
I don't know anybody, Republican or Democrat, if you just say this is about children, because it keeps happening over and over and over again, and nothing ever changes. How do we get to people, to get to people's hearts to say, what can we do? You know, it's more heinous to me that these were elementary school kids who were just sitting in their desks with their baby teeth. I cannot stop thinking about that. And I know you know the same thing about Newtown. Why not just ask people, how do you feel about children? We say we care about children in this country over guns.
Right.
That doesn't seem to be the case based on the actions that have been taken before.
Yeah, and that's what I said on the floor yesterday. You know, why spend all this time coming to Congress, running for the United States Senate, and then do nothing? Do nothing, slaughter after slaughter. So I think Democrats need to be very clear that we are not going to insist on the perfect. We are willing to compromise. But I think voters and parents have to stand up right now and tell their members of Congress, in particular, their Republican members of Congress, come to the table and support compromise. And if you don't, we're not interested in you representing us anymore. I think that's what parents all across the country have to say, is that, listen, we're not going to send you back to Washington if your answer in the face of these murders is to sit on your hands. Ultimately, we've got to be responsible, but voters have got to take responsibility as well.
Senator, you told us that you just talked to Manchin. Has any other Republicans reached out to you since this has happened?
Yeah, I was in touch yesterday with some of my Republican friends, in particular, the two Texas senators. In the past, Senator Cornyn of Texas has been willing to sit down at the table and talk about potential compromise. I'll spend most of today trying to see if there's that common ground. Maybe we just have to force a vote. Maybe we just have to put a bill on the floor of the Senate and force an up or down vote. But before we do that, let's take some time to try to find a way to, maybe engage in some compromise on background checks, on red flag laws, on, exactly who's able to buy these assault weapons.
Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate you.